All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
And welcome to Chicago Junction, the radio program. It's all about the amazing world of railroading and the many facets of this interesting industry and model railroading also. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou, and here is the boss of our head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and the chief electrical engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, April the 10th, the year 2019. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian. Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, good afternoon, John. Thank you. And I'll be also switching over from your announcer to the chief dispatcher role because nobody else wants to volunteer. And try to keep the chaos in line. And sitting on my right, I've got our traveling librarian, retired.
I'm Ron Stock. As Brian said, retired librarian, overall train fan, foamer, and can't wait till the 150th anniversary of the laying of the Golden Spike.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, lifelong Lionel collector and operator, and a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club.
Hello, this is Dave DeRuska, retired locomotive engineer, the guy who's in charge of the Chicago Junction Facebook page. Very interesting Facebook page. You might want to look it up. And also I'm the vice president of the the Blackhawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. And I am also, let's see, what else do I do? I have a blog called Player with Railroads, and I am attempting to get the city of Chicago and many other organizations to celebrate the 175th anniversary of the first train to operate out of Chicago in 2023. We had a mayoral proclamation last year, honoring November as Chicago Railroad History Month, and we are going to be attempting to do this again. We have a request in the pipeline. We're waiting for the new mayor to take office and sign that proclamation, and we've changed the month from November to October based on a lot of the things that I've been reading. Most of the historical references reference October as the first month and not November. So, that's it for me.
And yes, I've said my name's Brian Ballou. I am a rail fan. I was a locomotive engineer, conductor, retired Navy. I belong to several museums I support. Play with Lionel trains, do garden railroading, and love looking into the history. You know? What weighs 1,209,000 pounds and runs on steam?
Honey Boo Boo.
The 4014?
Or any big boy.
But there's only one operable.
Now.
As of.
Yes. But this is going to be this is definitely the year of the articulates, or the Malays. We could talk about that more in preservation news.
Okay.
But
right.
we can start looking at some regular news.
Regular news.
Okay. The BLT president decries railroads' use of precision scheduled railroading.
No, it's the BLET. The BLT is a sandwich.
I forgot the E.
Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen.
That is correct. Scheduled railroading message to labor union members. President of one of the largest railroad labor unions in the country has condemned Class 1 railroads' move to precision scheduled railroading, writing that it is putting at risk and comparing it to the disastrous Penn Central merger a half-century ago. And after reading the story, actually, I kind of agree with them a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're going to run bigger trains with fewer locomotives,
less people,
and that's going to be safer.
And they're getting rid of the rest of what they feel is useless real estate.
Yeah.
For example, okay, basically, Dennis R. Pierce, president of the BLET, blasted the practice of PSR in a piece published in the organization's newsletter. The PSR dates back to the 1980s and is actually preached by E. Hunter Harrison, who implemented it on the Illinois Central back in the 80s, Canadian National, Canadian Pacific, and lastly CSX. In recent months, Norfolk Southern and the Southern Pacific have also implemented their versions of PSR.
Union Pacific?
Yes.
Not Southern Pacific.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Southern Pacific, which is part of Union Pacific.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it still existed as an entity.
I think it's still they still have they officially merged it, but
okay, yeah, it's like the B&O and the B&O CT.
Yeah.
Or CSX and B&O CT.
Implemented their own versions of it to better utilize assets and drive down their operating ratio. He likens the move to PC in an effort to turn profit by selling off assets. Penn Central shippers and workers were mere afterthoughts. And that seems to be what's going on with PSR.
Well, they're scaring the bejesus out of the shippers, too, because a lot of the shippers may lose out.
Yeah, because they don't, well, if you can't do, you have to have a full container. You have to have a full boxcar.
Right.
And we're not doing,
They're closing shipping points. They're not accepting
short hauls.
Yeah, I guess they just want the truckers to get the business.
Yeah, and even to get it's hard to have people pick up traffic from scrap yards. And PSR has been called a lot by many industry areas, with a good reason: venture capitalism. Hedge fund investors swoop into a company, drive down operating costs in order to wring out every possible dime in profits, but don't share those profits with the workers who created them.
Can anybody say IC Industries? Which is exactly what happened with the IC.
But basically Penn Central too.
Yeah.
Union boss also raised concerns about the reliance on distributed power to help move longer trains over the road. And I'm going to find that that's going to be a safety issue with me. Because here we go. Okay, we have a time limit now on trains going across crossings. And when you're in areas where the train only travels 30 miles an hour or less, and all them crossings, like going across Duval Tower and such.
Well, I know in Illinois that somehow the courts overruled that municipalities cannot fine railroads for tying up the crossings for periods of time.
As long as the train's still moving, no, they can. But here we are. You've got to railroads combining two trains together.
Yeah.
And they're not moving at the same mainline speed they used to move.
No.
They move slower. So you have that 1 mile long passenger train or freight train now being 2 miles long, 3 miles long. And
that's okay. They're going to replace everybody with robots anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true. But And the thing is, the only people that are really going to benefit from it are the real wealthy investors.
Right, the shareholders, right?
Of those shareholders.
The vulture capitalists.
Yes. But we still need some good news. Volunteer track watchers form a rat pack in Nevada under a Nevada sheriff to curb trespassing on railroad rights-of-ways. And that's been the bane in the last couple of years. That has been what has been going up steadily is trespassing and incidents with trespassers on railroad property.
Oh, you mean the yuppie hobos?
Not just the yuppie hobos. I mean, just regular kids doing shortcuts,
Right.
getting through the trains. And Indiana is a big deal. Indiana's been hard hit this year with rail crossing from last year with rail crossing incidences and fatalities. They took a big jump. But a Nevada Sheriff's Office is asking the public to help catch trespassers. The Washoe County Sheriff's Office has created an rail auxiliary team, or a rat pack, an all-volunteer force that keeps an eye on rails in Washoe County and nearby Story County. Richard Gent, rail auxiliary team leader for the Sheriff's Office and state coordinator for Operation Lifesaver, tells Train Newswire that there's about 120 volunteers. Volunteers go through an 8-hour course to learn about railroad operations, safety, and how to effectively report suspicious activity along the rails without you yourself being reported upon. And Gent says volunteers will periodically check crossings and tracks during the course of their day, call local law enforcement and the railroad to see if they see anything out of the ordinary. Volunteers are reminded they themselves should never go on railroad property. Volunteers also participate in monthly education opportunities. Jen says the program has been successful. Prior to the establishment of the program, Wausau had about 3 trespasser-related incidents annually. Now it's down to 1, according to Jen. Railroad special agents can't be everywhere. They're far and few in between, and if you have a train traveling at 60 miles per hour toward a bridge with a trespasser on it, every second counts. Yes, there's, the fastest man in the world is,
Is slower than a chicken, I read today. Chickens can run faster than people.
No, his name's Bolt.
Oh, Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt. And the fastest he runs is 34 miles an hour, which is quite good. But he ain't going to make it across that bridge with that train coming at him.
Well, if it's a 30-mile-an-hour train and it's 3 miles long, it may be going slow.
Yeah. Now, along with the safety, Metro schedules safety blitzes at 59 stations. And there's a complete listing. So be prepared. Those of you that catch the early morning train, wait till you see the smiling faces that'll tell you about railroad safety and give you a brochure.
Yeah, and if you show up late for the train and you walk across the crossing with the gates down, you will be ticketed. Period.
Yes.
Period.
Police will be there, and they have no problem. And even those that drive around the gates to get across while the gates are flashing, it's so much fun. And then we come to Glenview.
Oh, yes.
Glenview, Illinois budgets more money to fight expansion of Hiawatha service. The Glenview Village has voted to budget another $36,000 in its fight against efforts to increase Amtrak Hiawatha service between Chicago and Milwaukee, running the community's total tab for the effort to more than $541,000.
God, the lawyers must love that town.
Oh, they are. They're probably they're hog wild. I'll bet. Chicago Tribune reports that the newly budgeted funds, $30,000, goes to the state lobbying effort and $6,000 will go to lobbying at the federal level.
That ain't going to buy them much.
The city has objected to a new siding that would be built between Glenview and Northbrook to facilitate an increase in Hiawatha service from 7 to 10 trains, 10 round trips daily, citing concern about noise, pollution, and possible increase in rail traffic that would result. The state of Illinois has already slowed work on the project once, citing objections from North Shore communities. The city is concerned about a new crossover that will be added, concerned about the noise when the expanded service is proposed in 2016. The Illinois and Wisconsin Departments of Transportation said a new 10,000-foot siding was necessary to allow operating flexibility needed on the route to be also used by Canadian Pacific freight trains and Metro commuter trains. You can't please everyone, but we're going to, we don't care about anyone. So.
Well, my solution to the problem was to just drop Glenview off as a stop on Metro.
Well,
and Amtrak.
Well, the original route they wanted when they were first forming Amtrak was the CNW line to Milwaukee.
Oh, the new line?
The North Line.
Oh, the North Line. Okay, the one that's now single track with no signals.
Well, a lot of the double track is still there, but there's sidings now.
Okay, yeah.
Once they get past, once you get past Kenosha.
Yeah, I was in shock when I went to Racine and saw what was left of the old line. It was like, huh?
That's it.
It looked like an abandoned railroad.
It did. It really did. Okay. Funding loss imminent. Amtrak ends ticket sales for Hoosier State. Amtrak has announced it will no longer sell tickets for the Hoosier State after June 30th, as the train nears cancellation as a result of the loss of funding from the state of Indiana. The state currently provided $3 million in funding for a 4-day-a-week train, while 5 local governments provided another $500,000. But the train was not included in budget proposals of the new governor, Eric Holcomb, or Indiana House of Republicans, which ended this funding July 1st, which would end the funding on July 1st. This service only exists because of state contract. Amtrak spokesman said, "We cannot in good conscience continue to sell tickets without a contract in place." McLary said 500 people who have already bought tickets for the train after June 30th will be accommodated on the Cardinal, which serves the Indianapolis-Chicago route 3 days a week on its trip to Washington, D.C.
So the Hoosiers are getting hosed.
Yes.
Well, by their governor. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, more short-sightedness from Indiana.
Of course. Now, Florida, on the other hand, Virgin, which bought into the service that was Brightline service, they raised $1.75 billion in bond sales for expansion. Virgin Trains found strong demand for the bonds to finance its expansion in privately active bonds. Trade publication Bond Buyer reported that the offering may have received up to $4 billion in orders of the bonds. To quote Brian Wynn, head of the public finance of Morgan Stanley, the feedback we received is, wow, this is a whole new level of train transportation. So apparently, despite all the cost overruns due to lawsuits when being built, it's a success.
Brightline is the one that is proposing to run all the way out to Disney down in Florida.
Yeah.
So basically, you'll be able to fly into Miami or no, fly into Orlando and then take the train to Disney. Because I know it's been a while since we've been to Disney, but it used to be like a 45-minute vehicle transfer from the airport to Disney.
But if you're going to Disney, you'd probably I'd still use the bus. Heck, I used it. But if I go in by train, yes, you'll be able to take it to a stop that be probably closer to Disney, but not be Disney itself.
Well, no. No, but speaking of Disney, Disney has got a deal going with the Hawaiian Railway Society at the Eva, where if you're at the Alani, you can hook up with their train while you're there.
Yes, from Eva Beach, the train now goes all the way to the Disney Resort. That is true.
Yeah, and if you're
it's Eva Beach.
Eva, and if you're lucky, Maui is riding the train like he did when we were there. They've got a local with the body shirt with all the tattoo work on it, and he rides the train. Looks just like the guy in the movie.
I gotta get me one of those shirts. Then I'll be hip. I'll have tats all over my body. Where there are none now.
You need to get the padded version of the shirt.
Well, I got enough padding.
Hey. How about why don't you take over for a little bit
there, okay. Joliet, closer to home. Joliet is working on a railroad museum exhibit that would be on display in the old Union Depot Tower. Now, a bit of background. The crossing at the Joliet, where the Metro trains used to cross, they no longer cross there. They have, the BNSF as well as the Union Pacific and the CN go through there. And the tower used to control that interlocking. It was closed, and it was slated for demolition. Well, the president of the Black Hawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society, Mr. Bill Maloney, spoke with the people in Joliet and spoke with the people at Metro, which own the tower, and said, hey, why don't you guys save the tower? And it could be a tourist attraction. So indeed they did. They rehabbed the tower, and they've made it accessible to people to go up there, but it's closed. And they have no plan on opening it. Well, now they're going to have a museum there. The city built the Joliet Gateway train station, which is the new metro station, with access to the tower in hopes of someday opening it up for a museum exhibit. The city council on Tuesday agreed to, this is, I don't know how many days ago, last week I think, agreed to seek $19,600 grant that would fund the creation of message boards for a self-guided exhibit in the tower. Now that would mean that there would be nobody up there in the tower to protect, and anybody could go up there and do anything they wanted to do. Not a good idea for a museum. The Union Depot Tower still contains the switchboard in which levers and other mechanisms were used manually to switch tracks so approaching trains could move from one track to another, a process now done remotely. The city is working with the Joliet Area Historical Museum, which knows nothing about railroads, to create the exhibit, as said Kendall Jackson, Director of Community Development for Joliet. The museum has agreed to research and do the narrative for a railroad exhibit. Jackson said the grant money would be used to design and fabricate the exhibits and put them in place. Jackson said the small museum space will not be staffed. It would be made accessible at certain hours yet to be determined. Now, you know, in my honest opinion, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. Well, first of all, the organization that helped save the tower, the Black Hawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society, has many volunteers who would be willing to come and work at the tower at specified times, as well as help with assembling the history of the Joliet area and railroads. But we haven't been approached. No, they're going to have the museum do it. They'll probably go online and look everything up. It's absolutely ridiculous. And letting people go up someplace into a building where they have no supervision whatsoever, can do whatever they want to do up there, is not a good idea. So
They must be the same people that are talking to those people at Cincinnati Union Terminal
probably
about Tower A
Yeah.
and how they can do it.
they'll probably hire a consultant because that's what cities do nowadays. They hire consultants to tell them what to do. Okay, we'll move on.
Am I the only one that sees somebody going out on one of the rail or one of the, steel rod decks up there and falling over the?
They can't. It's the tower is totally enclosed.
So there's no
way anybody get on.
there's no out access to the outside.
Well, there's an outside door up a staircase into the station, into the tower. But there's no there's no platforms or anything out there. People can stand on the station platform and fall off, and people do that occasionally.
Things put on display without someone in the proximity either get destroyed or disappear.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, that's our contention at Blackhawk. I'm a complete disclosure here. I'm the vice president of the Blackhawk chapter, and we totally disagree with this. And I would be willing to go out there. I could take the train from my house to Joliet, and I'd work there as a volunteer, help explain exhibits. But no, this is going to be self-explanatory. Whatever. Okay, moving on.
Certainly.
U.S. Senators John Cornyn, Republican, Texas, and Tammy Baldwin, Democrat, Wisconsin, on March 14th introduced the Transit Infrastructure Vehicle Security Act, which proposes to prevent federal funds from being used by transit agencies to purchase cars or rail cars or buses manufactured by Chinese government-owned, controlled, and subsidized companies. Co-sponsored by Senators Mike Crapo, Republican, Idaho, and Sherrod Brown, Democrat, Ohio, the bill would create certification process for transit agencies to ensure their funds are not being used to purchase rolling stock from a Chinese manufacturer. A narrow exception would be made for agencies with pre-existing contract or subcontract with such a rail rolling stock manufacturer executed prior to the enactment date, which is Chicago. They are having a Chinese company supposedly build their new cars for the CTA. Rail and bus vehicle manufacturing are part of China's Made in China 2025 initiative that targets global dominance in strategic areas, they said. Chinese state-owned and supported enterprises have used subsidized bargain prices well below competitive market prices to win rolling stock contracts throughout the United States. There are a number of threats those procurements pose, including impeding economic competitiveness, and overtaking the supply chains that support United States public transportation agencies. Chinese state-owned and state-supported enterprises also have increased security vulnerabilities and create new risks for rolling stock procurements, they believe. China poses a clear and present danger to our national security and has already infiltrated our rail and bus manufacturing industries. This legislation will help safeguard against this threat. China has made clear its intent to dismantle U.S. rail car manufacturing. Our economic and national security demands that we address Chinese attempts to dominate industries that build our nation's critical infrastructure. The bill would also ensure transit agencies develop and execute a cybersecurity plan. Given the level of technology and growing complexity of rail stock assets, it's imperative that proper cybersecurity standards are in place. The legislation would require any agency that operates transit rail service to develop and execute a plan for identifying and reducing cybersecurity risks. Recipients of federal transit assistance would be required to review the best practices and identify any hardware and software components of new rolling stock assets that should undergo third-party testing. So imagine you're riding a train and you're on your cell phone, and the Chinese can, they can see everything you're doing.
Gentlemen, I have breaking news. There is a train derailment on the CTA line approximately 1,000 feet in the tunnel near the CTA O'Hare station. I just got that right now and see what this, what else it says here. Evacuations in progress. I just got it just now on my cell phone.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Only here at Chicago Junction. Yeah. Although you might hear it 3 days from now. And I got one more item, and then I'll let somebody else take over here. Metro has forged ahead with plans for new rail cars with cup holders. I don't know if it has to pass any kind of technological tests.
I read that.
And greener locomotives. Wednesday, as leaders fumed about something beyond their control, the tracks out of Union Station. Amtrak apologized for a February 28th fiasco where a bungled technical upgrade delayed thousands of riders, but Metro Director Stephen Palmer said it isn't enough. Are we fining Amtrak? Are we going to stop a rent check to Amtrak? They owe something to our customers. Well, Amtrak already said they don't owe the customers anything. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, officials approved seeking proposals from manufacturers for up to 400 new rail cars with armrests and cup holders, and possibly heated floors. USB ports, and tray tables. Planners hope to maximize, maximize passenger space, and while the cars will likely have two levels, the current open gallery design could give way to a closed-off second floor. Now, how are the crews going to collect fares in a closed-off second floor?
They'll be walking.
They'll be walking upstairs.
No. You haven't seen the double-decker cars on the northeast corridor.
No. Proposals are due in August, and the railroad anticipates ordering about 200 cars by the end of this year. The cost is unknown, although rail cars can range from $2.8 million to $4 million each, unless you go to China and you can get them cheaper. Metro has some money set aside and would allocate capital funds over several years for the purchase. They're also in Springfield begging for money. Metro also intends to buy 8 Tier 4 locomotives with the federal government's cleanest ranking for diesel emissions. Revenues for the engines derived from $42 million in Regional Transportation Authority bond funds and $14 million from Volkswagen's settlement of a pollution lawsuit with the states. Despite the forward progress, directors are clearly frustrated with Amtrak, which owns and operates Union Station. And they've also been squeezing Metro on the rent. They want more rent out of Metro. More than 60,000 riders on the BNSF, Milwaukee District, North Central, Heritage, and Southwest service were delayed for hours in the morning and afternoon of February 28th. Amtrak was conducting a service upgrade during the morning rush hour when a technician fell on a circuit board. He tripped off the last ladder, falling toward the equipment rack with a live wire in his hand.
And he sat on the board.
Chief Operating Officer Bruce Marchese said, "The live wire touched the metal rack of the equipment and shorted out the server system that controls the entire system." Metro was also informed about a squash tournament in Union Station's Great Hall February 28th that worsened crowding. "Amtrak is affecting our brand," Director and Hanover Park Mayor Rod Craig said. "Without control, we're relying on somebody with a hope and a prayer that they're not going to impact us. Residents in my community need some reliability so they can pick up their kids at daycare." That's important. Metro's meeting with Amtrak officials in the next 2 weeks. I think they've also been petitioning the federal government to take Union Station away from Amtrak and give it to Metro, which I highly doubt is going to happen. I didn't bring it with me, but there was a news item about the Inspector General found that Amtrak has rented all these vacant buildings, and Amtrak has no idea what they have as far as their real estate portfolio. I mean, they've got people in offices like, 1 or 2 people in an office that holds 500 people. It's pretty cool if you can have a squash tournament in there.
But the president of Amtrak, he knows what's going on.
Oh yeah, he does.
That's why he's keep raising the rates.
Yeah, right. Okay, I will.
We can't have the private, those private varnish cars. They're no good.
Hey, do we have to identify? No, we don't have to identify our station anymore, do we?
No, we don't have to identify ourselves to anybody.
Okay. No.
That's like pirate radio.
Well, I had a offer from a radio station up in Antioch, I think, somewhere up there in the north. It's a radio station and a station. They're in the train station there, and they said, "Oh, we'll rebroadcast your program, but you have to have a half-hour break for station identification."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's easy enough to stop the machine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do a radio identification and start the machine up again.
Right.
Yeah. Duh.
I don't know. Okay. That's enough for me for now.
I got a couple of things. In the past, we've talked about Menards and their involvement in the railroading hobby. Well, they are once again running their 11% off sale, and they are introducing their Country Suites Country Inn Hotel. So it's another 4-story building. Looks a whole lot like a country suites executive suites, but this time it's country suites. A lot of windows, nice lobby-way, 8 figures, Jack the dog included.
All right.
A rooftop open area with a bunch of seats, with 2 people sitting down and somebody else obviously returning from the bar with drink in hands, and 3 men busy in a conversation in a close grouping. It's $109.99. Would make a nice addition to a layout, or a nice start to a layout. Also, Menards is getting rid of a lot of their older buildings, and they're putting up a sale, and this one pops up about every 2 weeks, that if you buy a building that's $59 or more, they will give you a second building. The last one they did that with was a country church. It was a 2-story country church, cute little country church, steeple, cross, couple of people. If you're not into Plasticville for your buildings, if you like woodland scenic style buildings, that's a nice way to go. The last weekend in April, the Fox Valley Trolley Museum is having America Goes to War, railroads during World War II, and they will have military reenactors out there, staging battle scenes. And depending on which group they have out there, there's no telling what equipment you will see. World War II Army Jeeps, World War II U.S. Army trucks. I've seen a German 5-quarter-ton troop carrier. I've seen someone who has cobbled together a German Sturmpanzer. Obviously, the main gun doesn't work, but it's an impressive piece of equipment when you see it rolling across an open field. And for the at-home hobbyist, if you're going to run the train, obviously you enjoy running the train, but the layout is almost as important as the train. And if you're going to throw cars and trucks up, eventually you're going to get around to the little detail pieces. And if you've got a piece of 3/16 dowel rod and your everyday pencil sharpener, you can sharpen the rod and cut it off with a hobby saw at the base of the cone, and then glue it to a 5/16 by 5/16 inch piece of cardstock. And when the glue dries, you paint it either orange or yellow. And when that dries, you paint the base and the ring around the bottom with black. And you have traffic cones for your layout. And they cost very little to make. They're nice eye catchers, and they add detail. And you can literally sit there and make 40 or 50 of them out of a single dowel rod. And, you use acrylic paint that you get at Michael's or any other craft store. It's water-based, so it's easy to clean up. Now, you can glue them together with Elmer's glue. You don't have to use anything special. And it's hard to think of any place that you can drive in the real world more than 10 miles and not see a rubber traffic cone someplace. The grocery store, the dry cleaner,
They seem to,
Remember, the shortest distance between 2 points is always detour.
they do blossom in the spring, don't they?
Yes.
And they're so musical when you drive over one of them and drag it under the car. But that's all I got for the moment.
Well, we have a special
Yes.
special treat today. Mr. Trolley Car showing up.
Oh, Mr. Camouflage Trolley Car.
Our Ron Smolin, our trolley car expert, is here. And thank you for all the wonderful stuff you post on our Facebook page.
Oh, definitely.
I try hard.
Well, that's how I end up getting, like we paid tribute to the last show. Saying how you look into the future and things.
Ooh, they're warm.
Well, this one's as dead as a doorknob.
Yeah, he's got to turn it on.
It was just on. It was just on. This one was dead. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, sort of.
Yeah, we enjoyed a live show, but we passed it on to some of our listeners. Like, you predicted that, they could have went that 3/4 of a mile and went to the convention center when they originally built it.
Well, they're going to do it now.
Now they're going to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
At double the price.
Yes. But it's a nice ride. I don't know if you've... We're talking about the Milwaukee Hop,
Yes.
and these guys are making a mess here. But it's a nice ride. I've taken it a few times. They just had problems yesterday. I don't know if you saw it online. Because the bridge on St. Paul, if they go over, they tested it and went up, but it wouldn't come back down. So they were using the line that's going to be, I forget which line it is, but it's going to be the extension into Summerfest. It's there, but it's not being used. So they had to use that as a turnaround. But, hello.
Yes. Well, welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Glad to see you moving around good.
Yeah. Slow but sure. I'm still getting there.
Do we need to do an ID?
No.
No? Okay.
We don't do that anymore.
We don't do no stinking IDs.
This is pirate radio.
Pirate, yeah.
Arr.
One of the I have a vintage railroad, model railroad, vintage railroad 2019 calendar that I purchased, and I brought it in today because of mainly because of Brian, but since he's quite active with the safety at train crossings and metro stations. But lo and behold, on the April calendar, they have a picture of a steam locomotive roaring by and a car from the 20s or 30s, and the title is called Wait, You May Lose. Crossing cautiously. And I thought that was quite interesting because I didn't realize it went that far back. And then Brian was explaining to us before the show started that some of the railroads, the C&O and the Baltimore and Ohio, were the first ones to take leadership with this.
Oh, everybody did. Well, I mean, where did the rare crossbucks come from?
Right.
Came from the Redding Company, and that was in the 30s, 1830s.
No.
So, I mean, the Redding actually gave us a few memorable things in life. They gave the meaning why the red light district started.
No. Okay.
Okay, when the men got off duty and went to sleep, they put their red lanterns out there. And that's where the call boys knew where to go find them.
Mm.
And they might have been some recreational establishments. That's where the red light district came into being.
I mean, health clubs?
A different type of gym.
Okay.
You know, different aerobics.
Yeah, all right.
So that's one of the items. The other item actually is also related to Brian. I ran across that beginning May 11th, the the model railroad garden at the Chicago Botanic Gardens is going to be opening. And their hours are daily from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., weather permitting. And Wednesday they go to 8 o'clock p.m., starting June 5th through August 28th. And Brian is often out there, so you may see him. And they have 18 G-scale trains running on 18 tracks, and the longest is the Amtrak, and the shortest is the Ladybug and Caterpillar cars. Most of their landmarks are done in wood or plant material, as keeping with the whole garden railroading look. And they have 26 bridges and over 5,000 plants and 300 varieties. And the trains travel about 22,000 miles a season. So go out to the Chicago Botanic Gardens starting in May. In addition to that, there's a train show coming up, which is, let's see, Lamb's Farm is having a model train days, which is going to be April 27th, including layouts. It's Saturday. It's going to run from 10 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. And they're going to have several different layouts. It's performed by the Valley Model Railroad Club. And I think they've done it before, from what I recall, seeing their original flyer, not the online one, which I had printed out. Another train show or model show that's coming up is Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and that is going to take place on the 20th, which is a Saturday the 20th, and it's going to start at 9 a.m. and it runs to 3 p.m. Admission is $4 a person, $10 for the whole family. Food and beverages will be available, but popcorn and free parking are free. They're located at 1311 South Schoolhouse Road, Unit 4 in New Lenox, Illinois. And finally, they're going to be the trainshow.com, which is the one located in Wheeling at the DuPage County Fairgrounds. They got a program. They're going to be open. They usually are on Saturday, Sundays, and the first one is going to be the 14th, and it's in Wheaton. And then their next one is May 5th and June 2nd. If you go through Model Railroader magazine, I think they usually have an ad in there, and some of the other different gauges they also advertise in. And then finally, the last two that I have, there's going to be a scale model railroad sweep meet, which is going to be Friday the 3rd at the Elmhurst, presented by the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club. It's going to be at the Elmhurst Christian Reform Center, which is 149 Bush Hill Road in Elmhurst. And it's west of York Road and east of 83. Admission is $5. And if you get a table, it's $18. And finally, if you're going to be in Elmhurst, the other thing that they have is every Friday night they have an open house at the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club. And it's from 7 to 10. And they're usually open every Sunday in the afternoons from 1 to 4, but they're closed on holidays. So Easter's coming up in a couple of weeks, so I'm sure that'll be one of the holidays they'll be closed for. They're located at 111, pretty easy, East 1st Street in Elmhurst. So if you remember aces or ones, you should be fine. They're next to the Elmhurst Police Station. And finally, the May issue, which is the month of the laying of the Golden Spike. Trains Magazine pretty much dedicated their entire issue on that subject. And they had quite a few different, they had some great articles, the ones about the 3 different photographers who were there, and showing some of the pictures that were taken by them of the event, as well as talking about Promontory and who was involved, the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific. So, plus they had some national news about Amtrak and some of the not good news from Amtrak.
No. Doesn't seem to be any good news from Amtrak lately.
Oh, definitely. But now, Mr. Small, he always has good news. Make us smile, please.
You want me to dance on that table? Or?
Yeah.
Well,
that might be a first.
If your accordion's in the car, yes.
Yes.
For a heartbeat, I thought we were at the Jack Benny show with the look.
Okay. Well, good news from nickel plate people for nickel plate 765. The first piece of land has been bought, mile of old New York Central track going into Fort Wayne. So they're going to start becoming a reality for that Headwaters Junction, the new display area downtown Fort Wayne.
Oh, wow.
That area that's been desolate down there, in bad shape anyway. They're redeveloping it. We talked about it with a new roundhouse and workshop for the nickel plate 765. They're going to purchase a mile of former right-of-way at the waterfront. Purchase agreement is a major step towards an ambitious effort to turn the underused piece of land into a mixed-use facility and rail attraction. Headwaters Junction, Kelly Lynch, director. The Norfolk Southern's already set up. They're going to pay over $500,000 for the piece of land. So there you go.
Cool.
So,
What part of Fort Wayne is that in?
right along the river,
Okay.
industrial area, or less than industrial area.
Formerly industrial area.
Yeah,
The Blight Land.
yeah. Pennsylvania has another railway museum open. The Cumberland Valley Museum. It's in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. Shippensburg Station Complex is on the university, and another Rails to Trail movement. It's the right of way of the Cumberland Valley Railway, and they got a small section of it, and they got a whole of old New York Central boxcar, and totally repainted it back into its last paint scheme, with that of Penn Central, with NYC markings. and they have it opened up inside. They say got a little theater in there, and it's right on the campus at Shippensburg College. Yep, see right there. And then we were talking about this being the year of the articulated, with the rebuilding of the big boy. Oh, we already went through that. It's alive. It's alive. They lit it off yesterday, the big boy, got it up to full pressure with minimum problems. So the big boy's all set, ready for a good coat of paint. But Black Hills Central, longtime railroad in Hill City, North Dakota, South Dakota, not North Dakota, sorry. Used to be narrow gauge, they standard gauged it, and it's using one of the Malays, logging Malays that they rebuilt. Well, they decided they need another replacement for the one that they're using, and so they got another one from Snoqualmie from their collection of logging locomotives, and they pulled it out and they're rebuilding it. It's another 2662T and number 108, and they're just about finished with it. They've been working on it for the last few years, and it'll be the second or the third true Malay rebuilt. In other words, its back cylinders get full pressure and then low pressure cylinders in the front for the second reuse of the steam. Unlike the Challenger and the Big Boy, which use high pressure steam in all cylinders. So that's pretty good news, because the other one is in California, outside of San Francisco.
The one in
Niles Valley.
The one in California, operational or static?
Operational. Niles Railroad. It's an old Sacramento Northern right away. Electric line. That's they've got a lot of equipment there.
There's a lot of places that have a lot of equipment but you know, they have a lot of equipment and a good portion of it operational is much better.
Yeah, well, slowly but surely, because of the rising of the costs, you have a lot of problems. Remember, we've got other ones being done. The 1309s being rebuilt. C&O 2662 tender engine that was in the B&O Museum. That's going to be running on the Western Maryland Scenic out of Cumberland, Maryland. They're getting that all set. That should be running by the end of the summer. You got the 1401. It just had one rebuilt last year, the Snookum, a 2442. So that's a small articulated pocket size. But then you have some others. Reading T1 484 2102 has been pulled out of the shed and it's been being worked on for the last year and a half. She'll be running by the end of the summer to help with the 4 1/4 that the Reading and Blue Mountain and Northern is running out of Port Clinton, outside of Reading, Pennsylvania, going up to Jim Thorpe. So, I mean, there's a lot of good steam out there if you want steam. And then you got also historic diesels. In fact, it just came over the wires, I think it was today, that the Potomac Eagle out of Romney, West Virginia, has a nice back and forth with 2 E units on each end. One painted in B&O color scheme, another in the C&O. Were just bought by some Heritage Rail outfit out of North Carolina or South Carolina. And they're going to take over operation. They want to actually bring steam up there. So
Would be nice. I was on the computer the other day, and I know it's very early in the year to be thinking about Christmas. But I, went online to the Steam Railroad Institute up in Owasso, Michigan, and they are already booking tickets for the Polar Express trips. They will run every Saturday and Sunday starting the 30th of November with their last run on Saturday, December 21st. 2 runs a day, and it's the Père Marquette 1225, which is the real world model that the Polar Express.
The story was based on, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the train is actually... The train in the movie is a virtual clone with a couple of cosmetic changes, and all the train sounds in the movie are the actual train sounds of the Père Marquette 1225.
That is correct. And the guy that wrote the book is from Grand Rapids, and he was inspired for the Polar Express because he used to see Père Marquette 1225 running every day, doing its freight runs.
The wife and I are trying to figure out what weekend, what days we have available, and if the kids are coming up from St. Louis, because we were supposed to go last year, and then she got violently ill, and we didn't get to go, and I want to go.
Now, if you want to see something really spectacular, the last weekend in September through the whole month of October, Norfolk and Western 611, they'll be traveling from its present place in the museum in Roanoke and visiting Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and ride on the Strasburg Railroad. It'll actually pull trips on it. I want to go there just to see it backing up with a train on the Strasburg. But also there'll be several weekends and Mondays that are going to have photo ops, because what it is, they're calling the reunion of sorts, because they're going to have their locomotive 475, which is Norfolk and Western 480, that Strasburg had rebuilt and has been using. So it's going to, like, kindred spirits meeting. And for $5, you can go up in the cab and pull the whistle on the 611. Or you could pay $750, get 30-minute throttle time, and you could sit there and run for 30 minutes going 15 miles an hour. Woohoo! And, the world's fastest the world's most powerful northern. Yeah.
Had the opportunity
here you are in the
32
Amish
years ago
country.
to do the ride at the 611 from the old nickel plate Cal Diamond Yard at 103rd and Stony Island out to Fort Wayne. And my wife was very pregnant with my son, who is now 31 years old. And as babies are wont to do, he was kicking the daylights out of his mother right up until the time the 611 went under power. And as soon as those wheels started moving, he went to sleep and didn't budge until we pulled into Fort Wayne, and then he started kicking again just to remind his mom that he was around. And on the trip back, as soon as we went under power, he went back to sleep again. But if you get the chance to ride in a car behind the 611, do it. That engine is exactly 1 month older than I am. It was built in August of '50, and I was delivered in September of '50. And it's a beautiful engine. The only way I can describe it is sex on steel rails. It's beautiful. It's classic paint job, and there ain't no whistle that sounds like the 611.
Well, I've heard people, I was lucky enough to get a cab ride in it. And let me tell you, I've ridden a couple steam locomotives. You got your Cadillacs and you got your trucks. riding in the cab of the 611 going down the track 60 miles, 65 miles an hour. I was riding in a Cadillac, not a semi. I mean, it was so smooth riding that deck plate.
The 611 has Timken roller bearings on the wheels. 10 men with a rope tied to the front coupler on level track with the engine set up in neutral can pull that engine. That's how balanced it is. That's how smooth it is.
It was designed by the Norfolk Western Company, and they had their shops just like Pensy did, and their own technicians, and they took what Lima, Baldwin, and Nalco had and came up with their own formula. Their trucks were stiffer, which actually gave it the smoother ride.
I'm not a big paper collector, but I have hung on to the flyer from that trip for 32 years. It's a 4-pager. One whole page is nothing but technical data. And I was so impressed with that engine after that ride, I had to go out and buy the Lionel 611. So I have the 1980s iteration of the 611 with all the cars, not just the ones that came in the set, all the add-ons. It's just a beautiful engine.
I'm missing one add-on, but that's okay.
If it was human, I could fall in love with it.
Or if you were Brian, you could fall in love with it.
Because she's a beautiful lady.
Oh yeah, like I say, you sit there, you learn about a machine, and look at the influence it has had in our life, lives of the country. How many stories have been written? How many songs have been sung?
I was at a police sergeant dinner, and I handed a guy my club card from Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and he pulls up a picture on his cell phone, and it was taken by a guy that was real famous for doing railroad photos, and it's an old drive-in movie, and as you look into the darkness, you see the 611 going by in the dark.
No.
It's O. Winston Link is the photographer.
Yeah. And that's
what
not
was
the
it?
611.
A Hudson?
No, it was an A class.
An A class?
Yeah,
like
1200.
Okay. I was going to say like the 1218, but you said
that is right. Yeah.
And he was. Police officers tend to get jaded because of the nature of the work. But he was like a kid on Christmas morning. He was in love with that picture, and he had to come out to the club, and I had to promise him that I'd put my 611 up so that he could see it. And what he fell in love with the 1200, 1218, which is another big, powerful engine. Almost everybody likes trains. The NIMBYs, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, I don't think the people
but
northern suburbs care much for them.
The people in the northern suburbs wouldn't be living in the northern suburbs if the trains weren't there to get them to work every morning.
That's just a minor thing.
Yeah, that's minor. You can't.
Yeah, don't let reality get into the conversation.
Well, Glenview was okay.
Yeah.
Glenview didn't need trains. They had big, ugly gray trucks.
No, they had planes.
Yeah.
Remember, there used to be an air base there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if they complained about that.
They probably did.
Probably. Well, what do you say?
I think it's going to be time to wrap this up.
I think so.
Any last words? Oh, yeah, I got one last word. For those that enjoy old movies, May 10th at the Park Ridge Library, they're going to do a showing of John Ford's The Iron Horse, the first movie made about the building the Transcontinental. So if you don't mind seeing the silent version with a little bit of funky music with it.
Ron, are you going to be playing the funky music?
But I know who is.
Play your funky squeeze box.
No, it'll be starting at it's either 7 or 7:30. They have an area where they could seat 90 people down in their basement. And I passed the word on. If you guys really want an enjoyable evening, it'll be come to the city of Park Ridge, across the street from the Pickwick Theater. And hopefully sometime later this year, Matthew Hoffman, who works for the library, but he brings in, once a month he brings in, does movies at the Pickwick. We had a sellout crowd in March by them showing Quiet Man on the big screen. And they did break records, so.
The VHS and the DVD of that movie are in my personal collection, and I was lucky enough to get a 25th anniversary edition, which has a copy of the lobby card and has all the background on the people that are in it, and the really old man, that's always walking around with the blackthorn stick and trying to instigate a wee bit of trouble was John Ford's older brother, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
I love the scene in the movie where he's lying on his deathbed with the young priest reading to him, and he hears about the fight, and he jumps up out of bed, and he's trying to run out the door, tucking his nightshirt into his trousers, and they're trying to hold him back, but he's not going to miss that fight.
Okay, I believe we can do the sign-off. As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be listened to on the web at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes, and also sample some of the other programs that are being offered. This is your announcer, Brian Ballou. Until next month when we journey into the Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Wednesday, April the 10th, the year 2019. Chicago Junction was produced and directed by John DeVito, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, April the 10th, the year 2019. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening.